Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I wanted to give you my thoughts on the new Forge World Unit rulebook, also known as the Imperial Armour Compendium. In this video I will go over my thoughts on the new book, but in a different way than normal on this channel. There are so many different data sheets and factions in this book that if I wanted to do a normal APG review on it and review what units made out the best and which ones made out the worst, it would take me weeks. And I just don't have that time because I am only a one-man army and I also have the new Space Wolf and Death Watch supplements to review, and because I haven't posted a video in, oh my god, it's been 2 weeks since I posted my last video. But anyways, this review video is more or less just going to be talking about my thoughts on the Forge World changes as a whole and how I think it will affect the game. So if you were looking for a unit by unit review, I'm sorry, but this video isn't that. But if you do care about my overall thoughts on how Games Workshop seems to be handling Forge World now, or if you just want to hear me talk because you're into that sort of thing, then continue watching. So for those of you who don't know what this book is, this book features every current Forge World datasheet for every faction in the game. So if you own a ton of Forge World stuff, or if you plan on buying some Forge World stuff, then this rulebook is meant for you. This book is also available for pre-order on the Forge World website until this upcoming Saturday, where it will then be available for normal purchase. With that said, let's get into the main content of this video. Let's go over my thoughts on this new book and how it now seems Games Workshop is handling Forge World as part of the game. So I believe this is the first time that Games Workshop itself has used its own rules team to write the rules for the Forge World units instead of the Forge World rules team. And I personally think this is a great change. From what I've seen and read in this book, because admittedly I haven't gone through every single datasheet because there are tons of them, but from what I have seen, most of the rules in this book now feel a lot more in line with normal Games Workshop rules as a whole. During 8th edition, there were some Forge World units that felt like they were designed for a completely different game, with some units being overpowered and undercosted, and some units being underpowered and overcosted, and of course, some in between. There were also some overpowered rules interactions and combos with Forge World units in 8th edition that I believe Games Workshop never intended. For example, the Unkillable Iron Hands Leviathan Dreadnought that plagued competitive 40k for the ending of 8th edition. And I believe these interactions were only made possible because I assume Games Workshop, when writing codexes and rules for the base game, never really considered how those rules would synergize with Forge World units because Games Workshop wasn't writing the rules for Forge World units. I could definitely be wrong on this, but that's why I said this is an assumption. And I think it's a pretty fair assumption. But now with Games Workshop directly in charge of all the rules to all the units and factions in the game, I believe we will see less of these unintended synergies in the future, which I do believe is going to lead to a better and healthier game for Warhammer 40k. Not just for competitive Warhammer 40k, but 40k as a whole. With that said, I've seen a few people online that are upset about the power that was taken away from their Forge World units that they currently own, and that they are very upset about that because of how expensive the Forge World units tend to be. I understand how that could feel, especially if you own a ton of Forge World and those units were what made up the bulk of your army, but personally I still believe that this change was for the better. And the reason I think it's good that Forge World units were toned down to be much closer to normal Games Workshop unit power level is because Forge World to some players could be seen as a pay-to-win mechanic within the game of Warhammer 40k. Like I've stated previously, 40k is already a stupidly expensive game even without considering Forge World models, and Forge World models are even more expensive than regular models. So if Forge Worlds continued to have rules that were deemed OP by the community, then people would claim the game is pay-to-win since those models are stupidly expensive. And having pay-to-win mechanics in any game is awful for the health of that game, especially in a game like Warhammer 40k, because then the game can become whoever can just throw the most money down on the table wins the game. And I don't think anyone wants that, except maybe the Games Workshop whales. With that said, I do get how much it would feel like a kick in the dick if you do own a lot of Forge World and if it made up a bulk of your army and if those units were nerfed. Because again, you probably paid an arm and a leg for that stuff. I can't say personally that this Forge World change has affected me too much because I only own one Daredeo Dread. The rest of my collection is just regular Games Workshop models. But I can say I can at least empathize with people who do own a lot of Forge World because I do own 4,000 points of Grey Knights, and for most of 8th edition that army was one of the weakest in the game, so it collected more dust than the Space Wolves did during the burning of Prospero. So I've been there, but just in a different way. At least this time around, it seems like a lot of the Forge World stuff is still at least playable and comparable to normal Games Workshop units instead of just outright garbage. So again, I still think this was a good change for the health of the game. With that said, I'm sure there's definitely some garbage units in this book that you'll never want to take to a game unless you spent dozens of hours building and painting them, only to watch them get shot down turn 1 after your opponent complimented how beautifully painted it is. But I'm also sure there's definitely some units units in here, you'll still want to bring every game as well. So at least there's that. Also, if you do own a bunch of Forge World stuff or are thinking about purchasing anything Forge World in the future, just think of Forge World as a special line of models for collectors and not necessarily for players. If you think of them that way, then it doesn't feel so bad anymore. Like, I mean, it still feels bad, man, but at least it's better than nothing. At least you still have some beautiful models to show off to people. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. And that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button since it does help out the video in the YouTube algorithm. And if you enjoy the content I produce here on the channel, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon to be notified when I make new videos. And if you've already done all that and find yourself enjoying the channel a lot, and if you would like to help support the channel monetarily so that I don't have to live off of Insta Noodles, then please consider making a pledge over on Patreon. Patreon is the main source of income for the channel, and it's what allows me to make Warhammer 40k content for the community. I offer many different rewards for different tiers of pledges as well, stuff like exclusive access to the Almost Pro Gaming Discord server, where you can chat with myself and over 120 other patrons and get advice on 40k. I also offer personalized coaching, custom lists, and much more. So if you'd like to help support the channel even further while getting some benefits for yourself, then please feel free to make a pledge on Patreon. A link for the Patreon page will be in the description of this video. With that said, thanks to all my current patrons who are still managing to support the channel even throughout the pandemic. It's because of you guys that I can even still afford rent, so really, honestly, words cannot describe how appreciative I am of you guys. So yeah, thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I love you all. And thanks to all you regular viewers as well. I'm glad you're all enjoying the content and coming back for more. Thanks again to all of you, and I will see you in the next video. Happy wargaming.